Hello everyone, welcome to Dentistionary. We are back with human physiology with a fresh new unit, that is nerve muscle physiology. So our first topic in this unit is structure of neuron. Let me remind you guys, you can ask your queries in the comment box, and for the notes we'll be providing you the entire PPT in the description box, which will be beneficial for you too. So what are neurons? These are the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. The term neuron is used to describe the nerve cells and its processes. They are the dendrites and the axons. Since our class 8 or 9, I remember, we are learning neurons. So what are they? They are the basic structure and functional unit of nervous system. It comprises of several structures like the axon, dendrites, cell bodies, and etc. that we will learn in our next slides. Neurons vary considerably in shape and size in different parts of the body. Let me show you the picture first. So this is the basic structure of neuron, where it has the dendrites, soma or the cell body, axon which branches into axon terminals or the nerve endings. Axon is covered by myelin sheath and the squamous cells. Okay, so let us discuss it in brief. First, what are cell body? The cell bodies are of various sizes and forms, which are of stellate, round, pyramidal, or fusiform. Its principal constituents are similar to a generalized cell. However, after fixation with special stents, its cytoplasm also reveals the presence of the following, that are the nasal granules and the neurofibrils. Next, we have the dendrites and axons. Keep in mind the difference between dendrites and axon is important, which might be asked in your terminals or prof. So what are dendrites? These are basically the extensions out from the cell body. They contain the nasal granules, mitochondria and neurofibrils. What are they? They are basically the receptors. They are the receptive processes of neuron. Impulses can be transmitted from one dendrite to another dendrite of another neurons. Or you can say from axon terminals the nerves, or I would say the receptor. They are basically the receptors which carry the impulses from one axon of other neuron to the cell body of next neuron. What are axons? They originate from somewhat thickened area of the cell body, and it contains no granules. Please keep in mind, dendrites contain nasal granules, whereas the axon contains no nasal granules. Next, we have the myelin sheet. It is a protein lipid complex made up of many layers of unit membrane that cover the axon except at its endings or at periodic constrictions about 1 mm apart, called nodes of Ranvier. What are nodes of Ranvier? Nodes of Ranvier are these gaps in between the two myelin sheet. Hopes you can see it. They are the gaps in between two myelin sheet. It is known as nodes of Ranvier. So what are the functions of myelin sheet? Why it is placed there? Due to its high insulating property, it confines the nerve impulses to individual fibers and thus prevent the cross stimulations of adjacent axons. It also helps to facilitate the conduction of nerve impulses. Hope so it's clear with our structure of neuron. This diagram is very important. अगर आप स्ट्रक्चर न्यूरॉन का आंसर लिख रहे हो तो ये डायग्राम बनाना बहुत बहुत ज़रूरी है. Next, coming on to the classification of neuron. Neuron is being classified into various types depending upon its structure and upon its functions. First comes the structural classification. So based on the polarity, it is of 4 different types: unipolar, pseudo-unipolar, bipolar and multipolar. So let us discuss what is pseudo-unipolar. These are the type of neuron in which only one protoplasmic process extends from the cell body. दैट मीन्स इफ वी गेट बैक टू द स्ट्रक्चर, ये जो आप नर्व एंडिंग्स देख पा रहे हो, सो देयर आर बेसिकली 1 2 3 सेवरल डिविजन्स और ब्रांचेस. अगर ये सिर्फ एक नर्व प्रोसेस निकले, दे आर द यूनिपोलर न्यूरॉन्स. नेक्स्ट आर द pseudo unipolar neurons. Okay, so let me remind you, examples of these neurons are very very important. See, example of unipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, multipolar neuron. आगे जो भी हम क्लासिफिकेशन करेंगे उनके एग्जाम्पल्स बहुत ज़रूरी है. So getting back to pseudo unipolar neurons, what are they? They contain an axon that has split into two branches. One branch run to the periphery, whereas the other to the spinal cord. Next is the bipolar neuron, which comprises of an axon and a single dendrite on opposite ends of the cell body. Soma means the cell body. For the transmission of special senses. कौन कौन से स्पेशल सेंस हम जानते हैं? स्मेल, टेस्ट, हियरिंग, और भी यहाँ क्या दिया हुआ है? साइट एंड वेस्टिबुलर फंक्शंस. नेक्स्ट इज द मल्टीपोलर न्यूरॉन्स. Multipolar neurons include an axon and two dendrites. Obviously axon एक ही हो सकता है, but we can have several dendrites. Multipolar neurons constitute the majority of the neurons in the brain. मतलब brain में most of the neurons are multipolar neurons. They are subdivided into Golgi 1 and Golgi 2 types, including motor neurons and interneurons. Next comes the functional classification. So based on the conduction direction, these are of afferent neurons and efferent neurons. What are afferent neurons? Just like afferent nerve fibers, they carry information from tissues and organs into the CNS. What is CNS? The central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord. So जो neurons information को tissues and organs से CNS तक carry करे, they are known as the afferent neurons. Simple. Next are the efferent neurons. Please note the spellings. It's afferent and efferent. Efferent neurons are also known as motor neurons. Forgot to tell you, afferent neurons are also known as sensory neurons. Okay, so what are efferent neurons? Efferent neurons carry nerve impulses away from central nervous system. Central nervous system से दूर ले जाता है. Where they carry it from the central nervous system to the effectors, जहाँ पे ये function हमें दिखे. To the effectors, like receptors will receive the impulses, whereas effectors will show the response. Motor neurons are further classified into three broad categories. They are the somatic motor neurons, special visceral motor neurons, and the general visceral motor neurons. Next comes the interneuron. Afferent neuron will carry the impulse. Through interneuron it will pass to the efferent neuron, which will show the response. समझ में आया? स्टिमुलस से ये इम्पल्स कैरी किया जाएगा बाय एफरेंट न्यूरॉन्स. थ्रू एंटर न्यूरॉन्स इट विल बी कैरिड टू द efferent neurons. Efferent neuron will carry these impulses to the effector, and the effector or the muscles will show you the response. A simple cycle: afferent neuron, interneuron, efferent neuron, and end it will go to the effector. Next comes the functions of neuron. Functions of neurons can be asked in your 2 marks. बहुत ही बेसिक्स है, उतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, बट हाँ आपको जानना ज़रूरी है. अलग अलग स्ट्रक्चर्स के अलग अलग फंक्शंस हमने मेंशन कर रखे हैं. लाइक एज आई सेड, axons will carry the impulses from dendrites to the other axons, other neurons. Dendrites will receive the impulses from the axon terminals of one neuron and will carry it to the cell body of the next neuron. Right? ऐसे ही कुछ बेसिक फंक्शंस हैं. Next we have one of the most important difference, that is the difference between the myelinated and non-myelinated nerve fibers. The neurons which carry the myelin sheet are known as the myelinated nerves, and the one which do not have myelin sheet are known as the non-myelinated nerves. और सबसे बेसिक डिफरेंस देखा जाए तो यही है. आगे देखते हैं. In myelinated nerves, the axons are larger in diameter, whereas in unmyelinated nerves, these are smaller in diameter. Axons are surrounded by squamous cells, whereas these are not surrounded by. They are surrounded by the concentric layers of squamous cells, and they are surrounded by the cytoplasm of the squamous cells. Okay. यहाँ कुछ डेंसिटी, एनर्जी कंजम्पशंस एंड ऑल के भी डिफरेंस दिए हुए हैं. प्लीज़ लर्न इट प्रॉपरली. It is one of the most important questions asked in your terminals and profs. Our final topic for today is the nerve growth factor or NGF. What are nerve growth factors? These are basically a neurotropic factor that are involved in the regulation of growth, maintenance, proliferation and survival of certain target neurons. These are produced by every peripheral tissues and organs that are innervated by sensory afferents. Hope so it's clear. So ये क्या होता है? These are neurotropic factors. क्या काम करते हैं? They helps in regulation, proliferation and growth of certain targeted cells or neurons. कुछ particular neurons के growth, proliferation में मदद करते हैं. Simple. As the name suggests, nerve growth factor. What's written here? These are the proteins secreted by glands and the muscle cells picked up by axon terminals of growing motor neurons. Main function is to prevent apoptosis. Apoptosis means प्रोग्राम सेल डेथ. किसी भी सेल की इंजरी या फिर इसका डेथ से इसको बचाती है by providing the growth and proliferation of selected neurons. So that's it for today, guys. Hope so you have understood the topic structures of neuron. We'll keep continuing this unit. Thank you so much for your love and keep sharing this channel. Thank you.